games night tonight, board, and so, you have a microphone down there, so when you speak this evening, I appreciate, using the microphone. His work at this.
They're not.
Oh, they're not working?
They're not up yet.
Oh, they're not up yet. They're just for show.
Just telling him that, I'm close to getting the, we need to get these connected together.
Okay.
Roll on until that time, and then we should probably hold on to damage anything.
Okay, okay, so we'll just, they'll look nice tonight. You still have this one though, right?
Yes.
That one's still working. Okay. That'd be good. We look forward in the new year to having all this. This will be good. Okay, so, so we're in this workshop, and Chief Bradley, this is more, you know, your department. So, we're wanting to change the way municipal court is functions, and we're going to go to the, what's the, default system. Thank you. So, Matt, just a little background on this.
Sure. So, in a lot of, well, when it first came out, traffic court was considered a criminal violation. And so that brought a lot of headaches for small towns, such as number one being the right to counsel, number two being jury trial, and number three being what do you do when people don't show up to your municipal court? People tend to show up to state courts and certain federal courts, but municipal courts sometimes they think, there's not really anything you can do. And maybe if I just don't drive through that little town, I'm gonna get in trouble. So the response to that was to allow municipalities to issue bench warrants. And that was really for a long time the only way you could actually bring someone before you that said, it's just municipal court, I don't care about that. Problems with bench warrants are judges and police chiefs don't like being called at 2 o'clock in the morning, which is usually when inevitably these people get stopped and we find out they have a bench warrant for Green Mountain Falls and they have to come in and take care of it. So a while ago, they figured out that, it's really kind of a waste to pool a jury, which is expensive and time consuming, for a traffic violation. For major municipal violations and things where you're facing jail time, you still have the right to a jury, the right to an attorney and things like that. So what they said was, we're gonna take a look at what offenses, traffic-wise, really require a big punishment, might include possible jail time. And it turns out there's very few of those. So they went down that road, said that essentially we want to look at the ability to be expedient and address traffic infractions without possibility of jail time, without major fines, and make it more difficult for people to ignore municipal violations. So that's where the default system comes into play. Under the default system, if you don't show up on the day that you're instructed to appear on your ticket, the court can enter default, which means you failed to show up. You are deemed to have been essentially found guilty of that, or that you are not contesting it. And we inform the state that you didn't show up for your traffic court date and to put a hold on your license. So when you go to renew your license, instead of waiting for a bench warrant to pop, because if you never get pulled over again, you never have to come here, but everybody's license expired. So when you go to renew your license, the state has a little note on it that says, do not pass go, don't collect $200, go back to Green Mountain Falls and figure out what's going on, then come back and we can give you a license. So from the town's perspective, it usually results in a greater recoupment of your resources that you've expended to issue those tickets. You also don't have clerks and judges going through and issuing bench warrants, which is pretty time consuming. There's several steps after the judge goes through and says, they didn't show up. Usually the judge and the clerk have to sit down and certify some papers, send them to the state, actually issue the bench warrant. And then when the bench warrant starts, that's more work for Tim and and his officers. And that doesn't, even at the end of all that, they're still not in court yet. The default system has more of a get things done approach to it. So it takes a criminal aspect out of it, which takes away the jail time possibility for most offenses, and really eliminates what the town has to do in order to enforce its ordinances. So it's kind of, it does two things. One is it implements this default system, but it also takes a look at some things that I've seen that might need to be addressed. One of which is currently your penalties for your municipality are set at a maximum of $1,000. And the state legislator a couple of years ago said everybody used to say that the jurisdiction of the municipal court went up to $1,000. And we haven't revisited that in a really long time. So we're actually going to change it, and we're going to make it adjust automatically based on inflation. And so they had not looked at it for so long that just based on inflation, the $1,000 when they initially authorized municipal courts is now $2,650. So that tells you how long they hadn't looked at it. And now they've tied it to an index that adjusts for inflation. So municipalities don't have to keep going back. Now, that sounds like almost a 3-time increase in the jurisdiction for your court. And I suggest that you do that based on all of the other municipalities that we represent, and frankly, all the ones that we know about have adjusted it. I believe I checked Manitou, they did it. The most recent one outside of ones that we represent that I checked was Fort Collins. And I know all, like I said, all statutory counts we represent did. Now that's not to say that your prosecutor, speaking on his behalf, is going to come in front of the judge every time and say, all right, make sure this guy pays $2,650 fine for speeding. And we'll get to kind of why they don't do that later, but one main reason is that's just a lot of money for someone who made a mistake and broke a rule and needs to make things whole. The maximum is really designed solely at the people who will not comply, regardless of what you've done. And one such instance that I've seen the court assess the maximum fine of $2,650 is a place where there was a lot of malice involved. There was all sorts of attempts by the town to spend money to help them comply, to get them to facilitate any outside the box reasoning that they could to fix this. And it was clear that this just wasn't going to happen. And they actually went back and calculated that based on the amount of time for the clerk, for the police officers, all of that, that $1,000 fine didn't even come close to it per day that this offense continued to accrue. So very rare instances, but it certainly helps, especially from your negotiation standpoint as a prosecutor, to say, well, the jurisdiction of the court's from 0 to 2650. So is there something in there that you think we can arrive at to avoid expending more funds to take this to trial? So then I guess that begs the question of what does it cost to, and what should you set fines at for other offenses? And so if we skip section E on page 3 there, section F addresses just that. And these are really the most typical infractions that have come through municipal court now in about the last 2 years. The number one's speeding of 10 to 19 over, speeding 20 and over, careless driving, failure to stop at a stop sign, seatbelts for an adult, seatbelts for trial, and then compulsory insurance. So, speeding right now, you guys already have set at $125. At the risk of saying, yes, it's still cheaper to speed through Green Mountain Falls, the state for 10 to 19 over is, the chief's gonna help me,
State right now, without an additional $2.50 surcharge, which a lot of jurisdictions attach, depending on how they're. Right now, it's a $135 fine and a $32 surcharge, so 167 is the average. And I think that went up in 2010 or 11. I remember the change, and I don't know, I don't believe it's varied, at least currently this year it has not.
So without court costs or anything like that, right now, it costs someone significantly less money to come speed through your jurisdiction than it does, or to have your officer pull them over, which means the town's expending its funds, and instead of assessing a fine of $135, you assess $125. Some boards think that that's, hey, we're a smaller town, we don't have the other police force, that's fine with us. So the stark contrast to that, speeding 10 to 19 over is a 4-point violation. Currently, another 4-point violation, which is usually written in either conjunction with speed or when there's a collision, traffic accident. You can't really necessarily say I saw them speeding. You're almost de facto careless driving. So they write another 4-point violation. I think currently your 4-point careless right now is $75. I would suggest that saying it is better for you to hit something and not get caught speeding than it is to get caught speeding 10 to 19 over and have the same points assessed against your license and yet pay a lower fee is not a good idea. So I would say get those at the same time.
Here's a good example to point out of careless driving. Somebody stopped, turned into Joyland. Somebody came down the hill, wasn't paying attention, rear-ended them, and created significant damage to the person's vehicle that was waiting to turn left. So that's a good example of careless driving, is not paying attention to what you're doing. Fortunately, there was no injuries other than immediate slight injuries involved in that, but that's the applicable charge for a situation like that.
And state careless?
State's 150, and I'm looking for it again. They have so many. 150, and I think the surcharge was a little bit lower.
That was 17.
Careless driving, yeah, 150 and 17. So it's 167 total, brings you right back to the 10 to 19 over. It's just different fine, different surcharge, same total.
Council, this is a question for the chief. A number of years ago, I'm gonna say back in the 70s, I was stopped by a Colorado State Trooper going through Castle.
Castle
And-
Pines?
Yes,
Oh.
and he actually took my hand and walked me to a post office box and mailed a check, or I don't remember if it was cash or check, mailed that fine. I signed it, I pled guilty.
Colorado.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Some state police and troopers, whatever they're classified as in other states, do that. They let you pay the fine on the spot. So I'm just verifying it was Castle Pines, or Colorado State Patrol.
Colorado State Patrol.
Okay,
No, it was a state trooper, yeah.
okay.
With that, if you're concerned about getting your money, I mean, having to wait for a no-show to go through his driver's license 10 years from now, if that's when it expires, can't you take the guy by the hand and make him put a check in the mail? Is that unconstitutional today?
I don't think I want to do that, one. Two, I'd need a card swipe mounted on my vehicle somewhere, because a lot of times people don't carry checks or cash, and it's kind of on them. They have a couple of options. It's a penalty assessment. They have the option to either appear and contest it, or to mail it. If they mail it within 20 days from the date that they're cited, it's an automatic point reduction. What I wanted, kind of in that direction, I wanted to clarify a couple things. First of all, judicial is not my realm. Law enforcement and judicial are completely separate, so it's not my baby. I'm just talking to Matt, working with Matt. I've been after this a few years to try and get this modified in a little bit more realistically upgraded. Second of all, here's a really good picture on default versus what we do now. You fail to appear in court. As a certain amount of time goes by, there's an attempt to contact that party, which no other court does that I've ever been involved in. But we do it as a courtesy here in most cases. We still see nothing from this person. So on the default system, it would be entered, they enter a judgment, and it just simply lays idle until they try and renew their license, and they're unable to do that, so they have to deal with the old business here. Here's what we're doing now. If all those stops fail, and we send it down to county and they enter an arrest warrant, guy's driving with his wife and 3 kids, 11 o'clock at night, trying to get home in a hurry, gets pulled over by deputy sheriff or El Paso County, or I'm sorry, a state trooper or city. They run his license on the stop and they find out that he has an arrest warrant. So they take him into custody at that point. They don't say come back in 20 minutes after you drop your family. They take him into custody and they take him down to the jail and they process him through and book him in. Now this individual has the option to pay the bond, which the bonds are always set in court on a fail to appear. And then there's a phone call that comes to somebody. Sometimes I get them, sometimes the judge gets them. You know, the court clerk's number's on there. Obviously, we're not open at 11 o'clock at night or 2 in the morning, unless it's a board meeting. But, you know, the point is that now there has to be contact made to reset that court date. So now they have to appear again to answer for that, or just pay the bond, and is it quashed or do they reset? They still reset. They still reset, they have to
They still
appear.
have to appear, yeah.
So that's the difference. I find 90% of the time out of thousands of tickets that I've written in my career, very small percentage of the people that stop and get cited actually mean to be and speed. They're not going down the road, I'm going to speed. It's in, you know, they're angry maybe, but most of them are just not paying attention or just have bad driving habits that they've been doing for years and they just don't care. If somebody's out there intentionally trying to cause harm to others on the road, that's a whole different ballgame. And I have no problem with those people being arrested at 11 o'clock at night with their wife and kids in the car. Most people don't. And I think this is just a more decent and reasonable procedure for somebody that fails to make a court appearance, because not everybody says, I'm not coming to court. A lot of people lose the ticket, forget about it, don't put it in their phone, whatever the case is. So that's my 2 cents on why I'm pushing through Matt to get this system changed.
So would you, when you said that someone gets a ticket and then we call them, we make a phone call out of courtesy?
It's been a courtesy call standard around here since I've been here.
So under this new, I mean, would we still do that? No,
There's,
no, so that would save our
That's a
clerk.
huge waste of resources.
it is, and time.
When you're if you're under 18, you have to be accompanied by a parent for court anyway. So we're dealing with adults that should understand that driving is a privilege. And so if you end up making a mistake or have a bad habit or something happens, you need to be an adult, come in and take care of it. This enhances that without us holding their hand. And, you know, he kind of hit the nail on the head when he's saying, you know, this is a more civil system, and I don't mean that in the civil versus criminal, although it is. This is a lot nicer to the people that get ticketed than to have to be arrested. Because if it's not something that pops when they get stopped 3 months later in Manitou. It doesn't say arrest this person, they have a warrant. And I'm not even sure it shows up. And
I don't think a default does.
I don't think it does.
And while you're talking about that, you gotta consider the time that it pulls that cop off the street, wherever, to take them down, hook them in. You're talking a weekend after 5, you're there a while. 2-3 hours in line waiting to get through. So, you know, we're also taking other resources off the street in other places when our warrants pop up for traffic offenses.
This is, you are not in the minority, contemplating moving to this system. In fact, our towns that have local police use this system.
Well, growing up, you know, I grew up in Texas, and I just thought that that's how they operated. You know, like if you got a ticket, you didn't pay it, you're gonna, you know, you're not gonna be able to get your license again. I mean, that's what we were taught. So I don't, it's a,
Well, and the 10-year license, you know, kind of forgets the majority, I guess, I don't know. I'm not out there patrolling, but a large number of people that get stopped are younger, so their licenses expire more rapidly.
Less points.
Yeah, they have fewer points to deal with, so, you know. The flip side of it too is the warrant avenue, because there's two avenues. There's the warrant avenue and the default avenue. So after you do this warrant and it's issued and they finally get picked up and then you finally take them to jail, they finally bond out and finally get them all the way back to court. When you start here, they have the right to go through the whole thing and contest the ticket and say, no, I want to have the copy there. Well, it may take a long time for them to end up here. That cop may not be working there anymore. It's a lot harder to prosecute. When you take the default area, if you don't show up, you're defaulted. So when you show back up after you've gone to the state and you're back here, there's no question. You pay your fine. 4 points was assessed if it was a 4-point violation, and we move on. No more court time is wasted. We're here, you just started the process. So it's aimed at efficiency. It's aimed at not sending people to jail. There are some municipalities that if you send someone to jail, you pay, the municipality pays to jail. So before they've even finally gotten back here, if it takes them a while to bond out and the county jails house them for a while, a lot of municipalities pay for that, which means not only have you lost the officer's time, the bench warrant time, the clerk's time, the judge's time, you're actually losing money before they even get in the door. So you're paying them to not do what's right. Here it's, if you don't want to take care of it, that's fine, you can come back and pay us later, but that is it. At that point, we're done. If you want to contest the ticket, you want to discuss a plea agreement, you want to look at other options, then show up on that day. Because we show up, and I mean we show up, the chief, the judge, and I show up, and the clerk's here, and we're ready to go. So it's the idea again, we're adults, come be an adult and take care of it.
So to clarify, the default, those points get assessed to like.
So if you're written 4-point speeding, 10 to 19 over, and you decide not to show up on your court date, $125 fine plus court costs and surcharges. That's assessed as, this is the amount that is reported to the state, and 4 points is assessed. If you do the right thing and mail it in within 20 days, it's reduced to 2 points. You don't pay court costs, and you go on your way.
So the deciding factor is it has to go into default before it goes to DMV, because usually it doesn't go to your insurance company or to the court, to the DMV till you're proven guilty. I mean.
Well, and that's what they're saying. It's civil, so it's the same thing if there's two neighbors that can't get along and one of them sues the other neighbor. If you serve them, you gotta come in. On the complaint, it says you're to answer to this complaint that's been served on you on this day. If the defendant doesn't show up on that day, the plaintiff asks for a default. It says he didn't show up. Obviously, he doesn't disagree with what happened, and he's okay with you entering this. And a default judgment's entered, and once that's entered, it's not, to say it's an uphill battle is an understatement to get that overturned. You're a big kid, show up on this day, this is your day in
It
court.
works that way with the DMV.
So it's the same thing. We're going from a criminal system, which means we haul you and force you to come physically and bring you here and make you show up and essentially don't release you until you show up, until you take care of it, to we're civil, we've written the ticket, and to correlate that, the services from the officer handing you the ticket. So that is one of the ways that we won't enter default, is if you have a defendant who says, I'm not signing that ticket, because then we don't have anything as the town or the court to prove that you were served with that. That's why you sign that, and you're signing a promise to appear, not an admission of guilt. We've heard it on cops and on speeders, online, that's what they say. This is not an admission of guilt, it is a promise to appear. So it takes a huge load off of your administration in the court and says, we're not gonna go through this long path to get you here to start over when it's convenient for you. We're saying these are the rules and we're gonna enforce them. So you have speeding at 10 to 19 over that's currently right now set at 125. I think every 20-mile-an-hour speeding ticket that has come through the court has resulted in a plea agreement that assessed a $200 fine.
Can I add to that? The way we're written now is if it's 20 over or more, it's an automatic summons. I don't agree with that, and that's because the state doesn't go that route, and I've never been involved with a jurisdiction that requires a 20 over or more be a mandatory summons. So I'd like to suggest, and I didn't have time to talk to you about this, but here's a good example. The state 200 or 20 to 24 miles an hour over is $200 and a $48 fine. It's also a 6-point violation, which is real standard. So I'd like to suggest that we give them the option, if they don't exceed 24 miles an hour over the posted speed limit, they still have the option to handle that through a penalty assessment. So if we stay with the fine of 200 and we add $20 as a surcharge, we're still $28 less than the state. If they mail that within the 20 days from the time of the violation, just like the 10 to 19 over, they still get a 2-point penalty reduction. So it's an automatic reduction to 4 instead of 6 points. And that's something I didn't really understand here, why we were summons only. I understand 24 or more. Yeah, it means it's no choice.
So the penalty assessment says you essentially have the option. Again, you sign it, say a promise to appear.
Or pay,
Or take care of it. So,
if it's a PA.
so the penalty assessment says I'm still signing it saying, yes, I've been served this, yes, I was here. So we don't have that argument when we get to court. They can take the option within 20 days to mail it in. The 2-point reduction happens to anything that's 4 points or more, and a single point for anything that's under 4 points. That means you don't have to come into court, and if you wrote one ticket and that's how it was taken care of, the judge doesn't have to show up, you don't have to pay him to show up, you don't have to pay your prosecutor to show up, and you don't have to post court. Not everybody does that. Some come in and say, I want to see if there's other options, I want to talk to the prosecutor, here's the things I have an issue with about this ticket. Some come in and say, I'm not paying it, let's set it for a trial. But the penalty assessment says, because what you were doing was not so egregious, here's some extra options that you have. Things like insurance, failure to provide documentation on insurance, or frankly, failure to have insurance, is a huge problem right now in Colorado. And we'll get to kind of what they're doing about that right now. But that's one where courts by and large say, you need to come in and show us, A, that you have insurance, or B, that you're not driving anymore, or that you just didn't have the paper in there, or explain to us what was going on, because that's something other than I was going a little fast, didn't pay attention. The chief's right, they kind of do, at least the jurisdictions that we represent, it's a penalty assessment includes a 6-point speeding ticket up to a certain amount. And usually when you're over that amount, there's usually something else tacked on. That not only was your speed was so in excess and the way you were driving was so in excess that you were also driving in a careless manner or a reckless manner. And that says, again, we need to come in and make sure that we're moving forward on that. Failure to stop at a stop sign, seatbelts, things like that, same thing. You usually have the option to take care of it without having to go to court. And the idea is that then you don't have to take a day off work and come and sit here and wait and go through it. You can take care of it and move on. It's a reward for being an adult and taking care of it before it needs to go further.
And on the seatbelt, I've asked that we separate the seatbelts. I mean, adult seatbelt violation, $55. I think that's reasonable. But I've asked that we add a child seatbelt that's $25 more. Those adults and drivers are responsible for those kids, and if they're not belting them in, then, you know, to me, that's a more significant issue.
So as you can see, one that probably sticks out most is compulsory insurance. And while I say $500 might seem like a lot, that's something that the state legislature has said, this is such a problem in here. It used to say it on the back of your motor vehicle registration that you actually signed, and it was, I think, up to 12 months in jail and a pretty steep penalty that said, we are requiring you to have insurance. If you don't have insurance, this is what you're facing. So you have a registered car now, make sure you have insurance. They said, we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to put it on the back. We're actually going to codify it. And the state minimum fine, it's a mandatory minimum fine of not less than $500. So if a state trooper pulls them over for driving on 24 with no insurance, and we're saying we're going to write tickets for not having insurance because the state said this is a big issue, we're required to do that. The caveat to that, and the reason we say with these you need to come in and talk to us and see what's going on, is because if you get insurance in the interim, and that includes the time from, a lot of people don't have the card in there, and that means, yes, I had insurance. If you come in, you show that, it's an automatic dismissal. So you automatically have it dismissed. It's a pain because you have to come in court, but if for some reason, and somehow, from the time you get the ticket to the time you show up in the court date, you get insurance, that the court may just suspend half of that. So it's actually up to the judge, not the prosecutor. But they usually ask the prosecutor, is there a reason, you know, how far along, when did this happen, that you can suspend half of that fine. But if you show up at court and you don't have insurance, it's $500 the first time, and after that, I think, let's see, the second time it's $1,000. I believe the third time, I think it's the second and the subsequent, are $1,000 per time. So the state's saying this is a problem that continues to creep up. We're actually making this mandatory. So while I would say that the other ones should be adjusted, that one's not really something that we can lower. And it does say in here so that if it's a continuing problem just within Green Mountain Falls, then nothing prevents the court from imposing a fine greater than the mandatory minimum. That's the 4, not the C. Other than that, the other change is this cost and surcharge. I did a investigation into court costs among similar sized municipalities currently, and you guys charge $25. They went anywhere from 35 up through 50. I think there were even some that were higher, but my suggestion would be to at least increase that to 30, and that's based on the amount of activity that you have in your court. The chief mentioned surcharges, so they have the ticket cost plus these surcharges that are meant to recoup the cost of maintenance on equipment, on staff time, personnel time, things like that to run each offense, essentially. So on top of a surcharge per offense of $20 is, as you saw low. For instance, speeding 20 and over has a $48 surcharge at the state level. And 10 to 19 has a $32 surcharge. So again, at the risk of encouraging, having better luck to be stopped by one of your police officers than a state or a county police officer, I would suggest something along the lines of $20.
And if I can add, if you want to put numbers to this year would have been around $8,000 in surcharges. And if you look at the cost of traffic citations, court documents, and all the things that we had to buy this year that should hold us a few years, plus what we pay our judge, that pretty much takes care of those things and more. So.
When somebody gets a ticket and they don't show up to court, what happens, if they get another ticket, there's no knowledge by the second policeman that they have a ticket that they haven't.
Currently,
No,
Or
under
ideally.
under this new system.
under this new system, no.
You only find out about it when they go to renew their license, is that the only time they find out about it?
Yeah, so if you move and you need to renew your license, the idea is that there's some date certain that you are going to have to address this. And that's the expiration of your license. With a bench warrant, there's nothing like that. So when your license expires and you have a bench warrant that says you never showed up for your Green Mountain Falls municipal traffic violation, if you don't ever get pulled over again, you can keep going to the state and renewing your license and keep driving.
If it does go to DMV through the default, why should somebody have to wait? Why should you or the court have to wait for, like I said, 10 years from now, driver's license, or 5 years? Doesn't that go to their insurance companies?
Insurance companies pull stuff from the state.
Right, so the state will have that.
So if there's no,
Yeah, they'll have
if there's no
it.
documentation at the state level, then
So that the date certain that the states put out there is the renewal of the license. Practically, what happens is your insurance rate goes up. You call your insurance adjuster and say, why'd this go up? It says you got a 4-point ticket here.
Take care of it.
They tend to take care of it.
Right.
So the idea is to put up that date certain that you, as a municipality, are going to see something happen based on the citations that you've issued, rather than the driver who never gets pulled over again and just keeps driving.
Well, that's what Mac was saying, but I'm just saying that you've got now the insurance companies going to doing what they do. I mean, I've been through the system and I know what it costs when you screw up, so.
Well,
I mean,
and that's why the prosecutor in Green Mountain Falls tends to understand that there are lots of violations out there, and that the town appreciates people who come in and deal with them rather than pretend like that.
But if they don't, why should you have to wait 10 years for a license renewal, or 5 years, or whatever? Is
That's for,
it 4 now, for every 4 years?
or change of address, anytime you update anything online on your license. And like he's saying, there's other nets there that will make them aware that, hey, something's hanging over my head because I didn't take care of this. So-
You guys wait for your money.
Well, you know
Right
what,
now, we're waiting for it indefinitely. Right now, there is no drop dead date. There's nothing that we can do that says we are guaranteed to have this addressed by this date. Right now, we depend on a warrant system that actually makes more work and costs more for us to get.
costs more for everybody.
well, I really don't have a problem with this. other than the fees for the minimum fines,
What ones don't you like?
outside the compulsory insurance, fine, you know, the amount that the fines go up is kind of like, getting a cheese sandwich. You get a piece of cheap bread with a piece of Velveeta in it.
I think
or
you
can get
misheard.
a piece of cheap bread and put a more expensive piece of cheese on it. You still got a cheese sandwich.
What I'm saying is currently, right now, the only change in here, right now, you were speeding, the first one there, 10 to 19 over, that's already set there. That's not changing. And it's still cheaper than the state
Or county,
or county.
or any other municipality.
So, and then a lot of smaller municipalities, they tend to be on the opposite side. It tends to be better to get pulled over by a state
So
trooper.
none of the others are changing.
No, so I'm gonna go through them. So 10 to 19, right now, if that is what is, if this doesn't go through, that's still what it is. So it's not changing. The speeding 20 plus over is a summons, which means that it's the jurisdiction of the court, which is current $0 to $1,000. The prosecutor does not ask for a $1,000 fine for a 20 plus violation. I'm 99% sure, and really more, to think about it more, like 99.9% sure that every 20 mile an hour plus speeding ticket that has come in here has resulted in a fine, be it, and all of those actually have been pled to at $200. So
But that's at the judge's discretion, not the attorney's discretion.
ultimately, yes. Part of plea agreements is to say, look, you're facing 6 points and a $1,000 fine. That's over here. If convicted. If you go out there and aren't convicted, then nothing happens. So that's where we go. I tend to say, look, seems to me like a 6 point violation is probably not what you want on your license right now, right? No. So we look at points. The summons gives the ability to agree on that before you go out to court. The judge then has something in front of him that says both parties agree, both parties being the town, through me, has agreed to say, for this violation, we're not asking the court to impose a fine of anything less than, or anything greater than, and set that. And the defendant, either through their attorney, or if they're being advised of their rights, that they're giving up by entering into this plea, agree to this. So what I'm saying by, no, it's not set right now, but in practice, that's exactly what happens. So that one's frankly not changing. The careless driving, right now, is $75 and is 4 points against your license. Typically results from something other than speeding. Either a traffic accident or just plain I wasn't paying attention. I rear-ended this person, I slid off the road, exhausting resources. I'm not gonna try to say which one's worse, but if it's the same amount of points that's assessed against your driving record, it's probably not a good idea to encourage people either to have a collision or slide off the road than it would be to, if you have to pick one, obviously one I want to drive safely and perfectly. You have to pick one, but I would not suggest that it be one that is written typically for accidents, either single car accidents off the road, collision accidents, or something above driving prudently. So
So careless driving, you only get a careless driving ticket if you're in an accident?
no, it's driving in other than a prudent manner. So sliding off the road, collisions,
Driving off the road, just
Yeah.
missed the curb, one thing.
I didn't turn, I was down, I looked at, my coffee fell in my cup holder and I looked at that instead of paying attention to this.
Crosses over the center line, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, without going through, hey, here's what you're gonna get for doing this out there. Yeah, by and large, it's that. It doesn't make it doesn't make sense when you look at the cross-section of municipalities out there. Other places are not like that, where careless is less than a fine. The points are the same. So the state has said, this is how much should be assessed against your driving record. That's the same. So it makes sense to make those correlate. If careless, was a 6-point ticket, then my suggestion would be that it be at your 6-point speeding ticket. It's the same number of points. So, again, this is what my suggestion is. I don't get a vote. Failure to stop at a stop sign's already currently set at $75. The seat belts for adults is already currently set at $55. Suggestion to add the kid caveat is really still, again, $55 is below seatbelt tickets, I can guarantee in Denver. And a majority of municipalities we represent, that's low. They're more like $75 for an adult, and I think Denver's is 102.
Yeah.
It's over 100.
It's over 100.
So, take it for what it is. The compulsory insurance is set by statute, like I said. G gives the ability for the board to do what it would like based on resolution without having to go back through the ordinance process and re-adopt an ordinance. Typically use the catch-all language in G to annually revisit fines and surcharges and dog license fees, and you kind of keep it all together. This gives you a starting point and says we can revisit it.
Okay, you have anything else?
I just want to reiterate, if we go down this road and you approve this package, if you will, that you consider making the 20 to 24 mile an hour over the posted limit a penalty assessment and removing the summons only portion in that.
20 to 24 over penalty assessment?
Yeah, incorporating that into a penalty assessment and not making it a summons only where they have to come to court. We don't write a lot of 20 to 24 overs, but we write enough. It's the same with the insurance. We've stopped and cited a number of uninsured motorists this year, and our program is if they don't have proof of insurance, then we check with dispatch. If their car's registered in the state of Colorado, dispatch will reflect if it's insured or if it's unknown. If we reasonably believe that this vehicle is not insured, or if dispatch is not showing any insurance status, we cite that, and that's a summons only. We're mandated to do that. And then we tow the car. We don't want them on the road if we're certain that they're not insured. They don't need to be on the road. In order to get that car out, they have to show up. They have to have current insurance, current registration, and they have to have a licensed driver to drive it away. So the state takes it serious, and so do we. We don't want people coming through here or by our exit up here that are uninsured and running into somebody or somebody's home. So it's a significant step.
Okay, guys, let's take a 5-minute break, start the works for a second, and then we'll start with our board meeting. Thank you guys for showing up at the workshop.
Oh, God, I haven't gotten shut down. Well, where's your golf?
Can you come down up there? They have a sinus.
Oh, well, yeah.
Sean, you guy and myself.
They were great.
Okay, whatever will work.
Oh, yeah, works good.
It looks great.
Thank you.
We just take it right out of the Christmas lights in there.
Yeah.